Welcome, everybody, to Leading with Gratitude Live. I'm your host, Chester Elton, the Apostle of Appreciation, coming to you live and in color from the Gratitude Viral Epicenter of the planet, Summit, New Jersey. We're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all brought to you by the wonderful people at the Methods Network. You know, we always say, give us 30 minutes, we'll give you a lot of information, inspiration, and your own personal roadmap to creating a culture of gratitude at home and where you work. Well, I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Connie Dieken. She's a dear friend of mine. And let me tell you a little bit about Connie. Connie is the founder of the 360-degree The Dieken Group, forming brands on how to influence positive change under challenging conditions. Connie has been named the #1 executive communication coach in the world by Global Gurus. She's also been inducted, get this, into 3 halls of fame: the Speakers Hall of Fame, the $1 Million Consulting Hall of Fame, and the Radio and Television Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Connie built her unique skill set during 20 years of broadcast journalism and NBC and ABC television stations. Her reporting has been honored with 5 Emmy Awards and 2 Telly Awards. She is also a best-selling author. Her 2 books are Talk Less, Say More, Become the Real Deal, and both were #1 bestsellers. She's a dynamic keynote speaker, both virtually and in person. She cares about her findings in leadership. Her research is amazing. Her thought leadership has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Investors and Business Daily, CNBC, the Kuwait Times. We could go on and on and on. Connie, welcome to Leading with Gratitude Live. Hey.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to you for having me. May I first say, you are a natural broadcaster. Your dad must be looking down from heaven, grinning ear to ear, saying, "That's my boy. That's my boy."
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Connie's making a reference. My dad was a radio broadcaster, and we would often joke that he'd pull me aside and say, Chess, you've got a great face for radio. Don't ever forget that. So, bum. Hey, listen, we're going to have a great conversation with Connie today. And I know you're going to have questions. So please put your questions in the chat box. We'll get to as many as we can. We've got a guest in our question command center. It's the indomitable Christy Lawrence, who Connie and I both know and love. So that'll be exciting. Hey, wave to the crowd there, Christy. So let's get started. We titled this session, Leadership in a VUCA World. So what are you telling leaders about influence in this VUCA time? And just explain what VUCA means.
Okay. VUCA means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I think it's pretty clear that that's the time that we're in now. If not now, when? But what I'm telling the chief executives whom I coach is that this is the single most defining moment of their leadership. No behavior shift on planet Earth has ever spread so quickly and so unequivocally. And the most unfortunate outcome of this experience would be to emerge unchanged. Instead, this is a time to unleash a counter virus where you can create a culture of influence that spreads throughout your organization.
I love when you talk about a culture of influence. So how do you do that? What does that mean? People are listening saying, "Ooh, that sounds great." How do you create a culture of influence?
Well, having been the Minister of Culture for many years, the job of a leader is to create this culture of influence at every level. And what I'm finding right now is that every CEO is telling me the same thing, which is that they are seeing leaders emerge during this time, leaders that they didn't know existed in their organizations. It is separating the big talkers from the big doers. One CEO, for example, told me that his team designed 2 new products in 2 weeks, got them to market, and they already have $400,000 in orders. And when it used to take months just to schedule the first meeting with the senior leadership team to discuss something. So there has never been a better time to step up and lead. Leaders are wide open to ideas right now at the top of the organizations. They are rethinking absolutely everything. So if you're watching this and you have an idea and feel that you could make a contribution, this is your moonshot moment. Run, don't walk. You'll never find a better time than now to make that contribution.
I love that expression. It's your moonshot moment, the defining moment. And as we were talking in the pre-show, you told me the story about an IT executive who really, it was carpe diem, right? Seize the day, created something that really did accelerate. I think it was that $400,000 in revenue you're talking about. But talk about how he
Yeah.
rallied his team and how he that moonshot moment.
What he had to do was he said, I'm not going to wait for people to come to me, for the CEO to come to me and say, what you got? He says, this is not that time. I saw something, he said, that could make a difference. And he said, I feel energized again, as if I was back in a startup. And people are just stepping forward and saying, hey, what do you think of this? You really will never find a better time with your leadership, because their resistance to new ideas is down. Because it's not going to be the business as usual. This is the standard procedure. This is how you get a meeting, and so on and so forth. These new ideas and great contributions are really rising to the surface. And so use this time. I mean, I implore you, do that. Whether you own a business, are part of an organization, or it's even in your own family. Things are changing right now. You're doing things in ways that you've never done before. I also question, what should permanently change? What habits have you altered that are actually making life better now? They talk about, the new normal. I don't know if there really is such a thing as normal, because normal is very subjective. Your idea of normal is not someone else's idea of normal, but it is the new, help me out with a word here. It's not really normal, but it's our new way. It's our new approach. How are you going to do things? And the future belongs to those who see it coming. So be prescient, looking to the future. That's what leaders do.
You are such an international presence when it comes to this. I mean, in your bio, the Kuwaiti Times, is quoting you. Are you seeing a difference between like East and West? Is it a universal moment in business, or are you seeing nuances between, say, Europe and North America, or Europe and Asia? I'm curious.
Oh, you know what? And even at a more granular level than that, we're seeing differences from state to state, county to county, everywhere. But as you would say, you and I both have the privilege of working with companies, global companies on nearly every continent, Asia Pacific, Middle East, Europe, South America, you name it. There are clearly nuances at the heart of everything. But I'm a researcher. So our research in Influence 360 showed that there are only 3 things that you need to know in order to connect in any culture. And those are these 3 things. You need to know what they value. So you got to identify, because a value is a deeply held belief that guides their decision making. The second thing to know is their resistance points. Why are they likely to resist these? And the most common form of resistance is a previous bad experience. Well, resistance right now is down because no one has ever experienced anything quite like this. And the third thing you need to know in order to connect in any culture is, what are their knowledge gaps? What is it that they don't know that if they did know, they would be open to changing their minds? And if you can identify those 3 things, values, resistance, knowledge gaps, you can influence anyone. But it takes that thoughtful manner. So our Influence 360 has been a 20-year research project that then turned into an assessment. And what we were doing was studying the most influential leaders in the world. And we define influence as people who elevate others and shape the future. And what we found was that there were 3 skills that truly influential people have mastered. We call these the influence cycle. They are to connect, convey, convince, in that order. This is a recurring sequence. So connecting is about creating openness and finding common ground. The conveying is about building clarity and certainty, which means that in today's world, you really need to streamline information for people and ensure you have the right information for the right people at the right moment. And finally, convincing is about earning commitment. And there is such a disparity between commitment and compliance. You gain influence when people are not just complying, but committing. And when you say that you're the apostle of appreciation, what we need are apostles for ideas out there who then are convincing other people that this is the way forward. Because you want to know the dirty little secret about convincing, Chester?
Yes. Tell me.
Okay. And not just convincing you, because I'd need to talk to Heidi about that, but your wife.
Right.
But the dirty little secret about convincing is we don't convince anyone of anything. They convince themselves. And so as
Right.
we go through the cycle of connecting and then conveying information, we have to be aware as to whether they are truly convinced, because that's where commitment comes from. And if not, we have to work very hard to do so. And one of the hardest types to convince is an anxious person. We are living in the age of anxiety. So that means we need to fill in those knowledge gaps for them. We have to understand their specific resistance, and we have to understand what they value and hold dear.
Excellent. We've got a really international audience. I knew we would when we put you up on the
Good.
program. So let's go to Christy in our
Good.
question command center. She's got all kinds of fun questions for you. Let's see if we can stump the expert here, Christy. Go ahead.
Hey there. Yes, it is a global presence. We've got people from the Philippines, Peru, Brazil, from Kentucky, Dublin, Ireland, and the list goes on. Slovenia. It's great fun. South Africa. But we have a question from Nikal in India. And he said, Connie, how do you convince the management when they're not comfortable to make these great changes, or maybe they're just too comfortable?
Oops, Christy froze
So,
up there for a moment.
yeah, how do you convince management if they're not comfortable to make the changes or are too comfortable in their own comfort zone?
Oh, yeah. And was the name Nicole or Nikal? Can you see the
Nikhil.
name?
It's
I want to make sure. Nikhil.
Nikhil from India. Yeah, from India.
Hi, Nikhil. First of all, thank you for your question. And you're right. It's very hard sometimes to change people's minds. The 3 hardest people to change their minds are people who are narcissistic, people who are passive aggressive, and people who are highly anxious. The good news is to change their minds is clear. You figure out those 3 things, okay? Which is, what do they value? What's guiding their decision here? If you don't hit that, you stand no chance. You have to tie what you want to change to something they value. And second of all, then, if they're really being resistance, that's rooted in some sort of experience that they had before. So for that, you tell success stories. You have to guide them to what this better future is. And of course, you need data that they will find matches their conditions. So use stories. And also with this, the eyes trump the ears, meaning you need to show them, not tell them. And also use their preferred format of communication. Whatever that is, that's the one you want to approach them with.
Excellent. I hope that's helpful. Well, we've got Tarina from Canada says, this is a time to get to know our customers, listen to their stories, and feel their pain. I agree
Absolutely.
100%. Why do you think that's so important right now?
Oh, it is because we need to influence in all directions. Influence doesn't happen just within an organization. It needs to be 360, and the customers are key to that. First, the culture of the organization internally, but also customers. So when I do customer summits with clients, I always ask them, so tell me, what do these clients value? What is the most important thing they value? And I'm always stumped that people don't necessarily know those things. And the other challenge today is that we can't physically be with these clients. But let's face it, that was already changing, Chester. People were able to keep us at arm's length now, saying, well, just email that to me, just send me something, because everybody these days was so darn busy. You know, the internet democratized influence and our ability to get close to people. So we really have to make that connection, and the connection is key. And whatever that's going to be, by golly, find that.
Excellent. Thanks for that question, Sharina. I grew up in Canada, so I love when
Yeah.
Canadians call in, eh? And I know what she's thinking. Where's my hockey? When's hockey coming back? Right? So I think it's
Eh?
hey, how's it going, eh? So I think it's appropriate that we go from the frozen north, eh, back to see if Christy is unfrozen for another question from India. So Christy, hopefully we got a good connection.
Let's try again. Harshal from India wants to know why these business leaders are panicking now. Can't they be creative so that once we're past it, that they'll be more successful?
Okay, Harshal, panic, fear, and also optimism are very personal choices that we make. And again, much of this is rooted in our life experiences. Some will panic because they may know that they don't have the cash flow. They may be panicking because they know information that they're not sharing with you yet. I always ask them to identify, and you can't do this to your boss. Oh, so what's your fear rooted in? But you can, yeah, do tell. You can indeed get in there and look at past decisions that they have made, and to get in, and if it's a public company, look at as much information as you can to see what that is rooted in. You can't change a person from doing that, but you can indeed just control yourself. Influence yourself first. And most importantly, decide what's your ideal outcome. So if your ideal outcome with this boss is that you want them to understand blank, first of all, you've got to understand. Understanding is not an outcome. What is it specifically you want them to do? And then how can you guide them down that path? That will help them get past this panic and fear. But we also have to realize that we take our cues from the people whom we choose to listen to. And if we choose to listen to negative people and people who, the sky is falling, that can and will make up our viewpoint as well. So be careful who you listen to. Be very proactive, pragmatic, but careful.
Yeah. I love that question. I love about, you constantly talk about influence. One of my favorite books, and I've used your, Become the Real Deal. By the way, highly recommend this book. And so leaders are really made in hard times, and these are hard times. So how do leaders stay the real deal in the crisis? We talk often that, look, if your people didn't trust you before the virus, you can't just expect them to trust you now, right? So how do you stay the real deal? Because the questions are great. People are panicking. This is getting a little crazy here. So any tips for leaders how to stay the real deal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. First, influence yourself and understand that you have something to contribute to the world. But our research found that presence is what remains in your absence. So that's what presence is, how we define that. But we learned that there are three elements of your presence. There is your inner presence, which is how you experience yourself. There's outer presence, which is how others experience you. And then there's the connective tissue of verbal presence, meaning what is it that you are sharing with people? What are they hearing from you? I would say that leaders at this time need to forget the old, oh, I'm going to put out this press release the way we used to do it, and it will be filtered. What people really want from leaders right now is humanity. To just get real, to tell them the things that they don't know, how they're going to find those answers, and when they will get back to them. This is the time to err on the side of over-communicating rather than under-communicating, because that's why many people panic, because there's a dearth of information. They don't know things. That's why this is such an extraordinary time. The data isn't there, and the data that is coming seems to conflict with one another. Remember the early days of this. Don't wear a mask. Yes, wear a mask. Don't do this. Yes, do this. Right. So in a lack of data or in a void of information on what we should do, we are just left with this VUCA uncertainty. What do we do? So the best thing you can do is center yourself internally and externally and ensure that your messages are also centered.
Excellent. Let's take one more question. We'll go back to Christy at the Question Command Center from Rawlings in Nigeria. And by the way, Tarina wanted to let us all know that the Canadian Football League has postponed the Grey Cup and put it off till 2021. So for all you big CFL fans, no Grey Cup.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Christy,
Torino. I'm so sorry.
There you go. So, Christy, a question from Nigeria?
Yes, Rawlings from Nigeria says, could you please suggest a strategic relationship that one needs to put in place during a pandemic? Closing deals.
A strategic partnership to put in place. A strategic partnership to put in place to help close deals. Clearly, Rawlings is in sales.
Oh, yes.
And you've got 20 seconds, yes. Connie. So go.
Okay. It's the convincing to understand when people are not quite convinced yet, and then that you have to share with them things so that they will do that. It's just a delicate balance right now, but you have to understand you've got to transfer ownership of ideas to them and uncover what their resistance still is.
Excellent. So we always like to give tools. So what are 3 tips you can give people around being more influential during the coronavirus?
Okay, 3 things. Number 1, influence is earned. It's a meritocracy, not an autocracy. It's an opportunity to unify people, elevate conditions, and shape change. Anyone can be an influencer. Number 2, you need to influence in all directions. But to do that, you have to identify all of the stakeholders involved so that you can create this culture of influence. And the third is, you can't influence a world that no longer exists. This pandemic shattered the world that we knew it before. Tomorrow will belong to those who see it coming. So rethink today the key decisions and turning points, and understand that you need to influence tomorrow, not a world that existed even pre-internet.
Excellent. So we can find your work where? Give everybody your website, and I encourage you to follow Connie on LinkedIn as well. She's publishing all the time. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. My website is my name. It's unusual to spell, conniedieken.com. You can see it there on your lovely graphic. Please follow me on LinkedIn. I try to make thoughtful contributions, and through my books, which you'll find wherever you choose to find books, like Amazon. Oh, thank you. You're so,
They're in my
so
library.
kind.
I
I
love
am so
Talk
grateful.
Less. Yeah, Talk Less, Say More, a great one. And I can't recommend more highly The Real Deal as well. I use it in my coaching. Connie, you're always a delight. We ask every guest, where did you find your gratitude today? Hashtag, where did you find your gratitude?
Well, I live in a constant state of gratitude. I keep a daily gratitude journal, always grateful to my family and my friends, my clients. I'm especially grateful today to our mutual, incredible person, Christy Lawrence. And today, can I just add a little levity to this? After 2 weeks of quarantine eating, I'm just grateful that I fit into my clothes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, listen, Connie, you never
Eating everything
disappoint.
in sight.
A delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much. So
Oh,
listen,
you're
we want to
welcome.
give the
Thank
shout out
you.
to all our fun people that make this show possible. Let's give a shout out to Christy Lawrence in the Question Command Center, and questions from India and Nigeria. And of course, the world's #1 producer on the planet, Brent Klein. Wave to the crowd, Brent.
Hey.
You can find all our episodes, by the way, on the Methods of Network / our shows, Marshall Goldsmith shows. Our guest on Tuesday coming up is really a wonderful new author, Jacob Morgan. This is his book, The Future Leader. He is a well-known futurist, one of the world's leading authorities in leadership, the future of work, employee experience, and leadership. He's authored 4 best-selling books. He's going to talk to us about the future of being the future leader, which is great. He's engaging. He's interesting. He's smart. More than that, he is just a good guy. So I hope you'll join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, or as I like to say, New York time. Same bad time, same bad channel. You give us 30 minutes. We'll give you great information. We'll give you great inspiration and your own personal roadmap to create a culture of gratitude at home and at work. And we always love to give a shout out to our sponsor, our wonderful publisher at Harper Business. Brent, throw it up on the screen. This is Alan Mullally, the guy who saved Ford, said, I love, love, love this book. And not so subtly, we encourage you to what? Buy me, buy me, buy me. Well, listen, I'm grateful for our time together. I hope that through all of this, that we are more grateful, we are more kind, and we are more patient with each other. Grateful to have you as our audience. You guys be careful, be safe out there, and we'll see you Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Cheers.